You are listening to the Serra High School Podcast, your connection to the scholars, the athletes, the men of faith, the men of humility, the Serra Padres. Hello and welcome to the Serra High School Podcast. Today I am fortunately joined by one of our esteemed English teachers, Mrs. Flynn. Thank you for being here today.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We've been so fortunate to be able to have so many different aspects of our school. We've had some administration, some student life, and now we're fortunate enough to get to the heart and soul of the school as well in kind of trying to tap into the classroom and hear a lot more about what exactly you teach and your just overall view on English and how you incorporate it into the classroom and get these boys really thinking about literature, past and present. So why don't we start out? Why don't you tell me a little bit about the classes that you teach and the grade levels?
Sure, yeah. So I teach 2 grade levels, freshman English, which is a genre study, and then senior literature and composition, which is our college prep English course for the seniors.
Great. I'm sure you're doing a lot in that class, and I want to get to that because here we are already at acceptances, so I'm sure it's been a busy year.
Yeah, very busy. The seniors curriculum, fortunately, we build it so that our students are very college ready is our goal. We start the senior curriculum with a college essay unit, so right off the bat, we're drafting essays, working on Common App, UC apps, anything that students need to help with the college process. And it is fun now hearing from a lot of students about where they're getting into, where they're committing to. It's been a great year so far.
That's wonderful. Well, I really want to get into that, and I want to talk about just the peer review process. And I think a lot of people are interested, those juniors coming up the pike here are interested in how you determine what you write on, and there's a lot that goes into it. But first, let me ask you, so how long have you been at Serra, and what made you choose Serra? I think I know a little bit about your familial history, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I grew up with a house of Padres. My father went here, my uncle, my 2 older brothers are Serra grads as well, and tons of our family friends. So I'm surrounded by Padres, have been my whole life. And so I've always loved Serra. I couldn't come here, so I did go to SI, which is a point of contention at first with the students, but it's a good icebreaker. So that was great. But then when I graduated from my credential program after teaching in Milwaukee, Serra had an opening, and it was just really lucky timing. I'm really fortunate to be here. This is my 4th year.
Awesome. And so you were a double major at Marquette, is that right?
Yeah.
What did you major in?
So I had secondary education, which included a credential track through Milwaukee Public Schools, and then English language arts. So just what I did.
And that's 2018, right?
Yeah, I graduated from Marquette in 2018, started here in August of 2018.
Awesome. And did you always know you wanted to be a teacher?
Oh, yeah. My 4th grade teacher at OLA in Burlingame, actually, Mrs. Lentz, she made me want to be a teacher, and I just loved everything about her. And then as I went through high school, I had a few high school English teachers who really solidified for me that that's what I wanted to do. So it's always been a goal of mine, and I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, we're happy to have you here. Tell me a little bit about just your interest in English. I can understand that you were impressed by some of your really admirable teachers, but what made you choose English as the subject that you wanted to explore more?
Yeah, so I think with English, I love literature, I love reading, obviously, and I think with the thing that's such an appealing draw to be an English teacher is the ability to have real conversations in the classroom, using our literature as like a vessel for those conversations. We focus a lot in the department on, theme and character development, which are very much applicable to our students' lives, and I think really help our students be prepared for the future and the world around them.
That's great. And what are some of your favorite, there must be certain pieces of literature that you enjoy, some units you enjoy more. Are there any books like summer reading or let's talk about freshmen first, because I'm sure that the mind, we see the transformation from freshman to senior, so I'm sure there are different discussions in the classroom.
Totally. It's great to see the growth from freshman to senior year. But the freshmen, we start off all incoming freshmen read A Long Way Gone by Ishmael Bea. It's a memoir of a child soldier in Sierra Leone, and it's a really heavy text, but students do a great job with it, and it gets us started on a great foot altogether in identifying themes, a lot of those having to do with resilience and staying strong, value in family and human connection. So it's a really great way to start off the year. So I really like leading with that with the freshmen for sure. We move into Catcher in the Rye, which is a classic, a fun one. And then we actually today just finished reading Romeo and Juliet, which is certainly a challenge, but the boys did great. They were awesome. And it's, again, the idea that they can pull messages and themes from Shakespeare's time and apply them to themselves and the world around us is like one of the most important things for us.
Oh, definitely. And I can only imagine the discussions of Romeo and Juliet in an all boys school versus like my daughter, studied she's at Notre Dame, and they did, that unit there. And I'm sure that they were very different, but all the same themes, of course, but different reflections. So yeah,
it's good. It's good. We had fun with it. We were, reenacting the balcony scene all over campus, and they really stepped up and portraying different characters. At first, no one wanted to be Juliet, but they got over it.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, good. Well, can you tell me just a little bit, since we're talking about, you brought up critical thinking and argument and just author's perspective themes, things like that. Can you just kind of, and I'm sure that we could go on many podcasts about this, but can you just talk about Sarah's English department as a whole and just like, how you... just about the curriculum from year to year and what you introduce. And obviously you end up with like you said, the writing for collegiate applications. So just maybe an overview if you can.
Yeah, sure. So I'm super lucky to be part of the English department. Everyone is so amazing and well qualified. And I've learned so much from all of them, first of all. But our department, I'm really proud to be part of the work we've done. We are standards-based you have standards-based curriculum with critical thinking skills as a primary focus across all 4 grade levels. So we're vertically aligned with our standards and horizontally aligned. So the skills that we're working are introducing freshman year. They're, we build on every single year, and then they're ultimately mastered at a higher level by the time they're leaving here. So with critical thinking, it's problem solving, engaging with the world around them, drawing connections between the text and current events, issues, policies, whatever it may be. So it's really cool to see, especially for me, I'm lucky to have freshmen and seniors and to see that growth and development from young boys like first experiencing this to confident, well-rounded young men as seniors. Engaging with these difficult concepts is very cool.
Oh, I can only imagine. And I'm sure that you were saying it's aligned, in every direction. I'm sure it's also aligned with some of the curriculum introduced and discussed in history and in, theology and whatnot. So it's kind of a very, well-rounded education when you kind of put all of those variables together.
Totally, yeah. I all the time, especially with my seniors, I hear, oh, we talked about this in theology, or we talked about this with Dr. Buckles, or I'm doing my social justice project, and it's reminding me of the themes from All American Boys. So it's definitely cool to see the students draw connections across curriculum or curricular contents as well.
Oh, I can only imagine. Mm-hmm. So in the classroom, what motivates you personally? Like, how do you conduct your classroom? What are some of the hallmarks of, the behavioral hallmarks and just, what you demand of your students, and what motivates you as a teacher to meet those criteria? Yeah,
so a couple of things. I think first, in terms of like my classroom expectations, no matter the grade level, no matter the year, semester, we start with the same, setting of expectations. I require a classroom or a space that's respectful and positive for all students, so that everybody feels comfortable participating, and ultimately the goal is for everyone to be successful. We're all at different places, so as long as we're being respectful of each other and productive, then I'm happy. My students know that. I give them the speech day one. Respect, honesty are really, really essential in my classroom, as are for many teachers. And then in terms of motivation, I think for me, what motivates me most in the classroom is seeing student growth, watching or helping a student through a certain struggle, maybe with a concept, or they're really struggling with a particular essay assignment. Seeing them improve and gain the confidence that they need to continue to improve moving forward is one of the best motivators for me.
I'll bet. And I think that I think you and I have talked about this before, and I'd love to talk about it a little bit more. And you've seen it, in different generations of your family, right? What I find so profound about Sarah is just the mentorship, right? Like the fact that you just illustrated, like, oh, if someone's having trouble here, here, or here, I know the connections and relationships that you've built with your students help you to, be looked at as a mentor to see them through that obstacle. Can you talk about it as a whole, as an environment? I mean, it is one of our a selling point, I think.
Yeah,
It's such
totally.
a wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm lucky. I've seen it and from many different angles, right? So again, I'm a younger sister of 2 Padres. My dad, my uncle, my brothers are all still so close with their Serra friends. My oldest brother is getting married in a few weeks, and a few of his groomsmen are Padres.
Awesome.
So the connection, the lifelong brotherhood, I've seen it from, at home my whole life, and then I now get to see that same type of connection being fostered in the classroom, and to help with that in the classroom and outside of the classroom on campus it's really unique, special for sure.
That's great. And what about the relationship between student and teacher? I mean, I've seen a lot of, I know just from interviewing different teachers and administrators, I mean, they're lifelong Padres. I mean, they come back, I see them at games and such, but the relationships in the classroom, the reliance on that, I mean, it's just so interpersonal.
Totally. And yeah, I have a lot of friends who are my age who went to Serra and, within a few years. And when I talk about working here, first few questions are, oh, is Mr. Sullivan? How's Mr. Sullivan? Is Dr. Thornton still there? Asking about, Coach Nolan, asking about specific people, wanting to know how they're doing. And then they can go on and on and on about how much they've learned from those particular people, which is really cool. I also think it's awesome that we have so many alumni working here. That's really special. Like just the amount of people here who had a good experience with it and chose to come back, for sure.
It's actually a good point. We've interviewed several alums, but we haven't really talked about the fact that there's a lot of Padres here. That's right.
Yeah. When I got hired, Dr. Thornton told me that about a third of I don't know if this is the up-to-date number, but as of a few years ago, about a third of the teaching staff was alum.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
It's great, yeah,
and
great. It reinforces that idea that it's like a for-life kind of community.
Yeah, and it also, I think, maybe spawns what we constantly say, which is we're built on tradition, right? There's
totally.
A lot of likenesses today that there were every decade, so that's good.
Yeah,
excellent. So moving from freshmen and I'm sure that I can only imagine by senior year. I mean, this actually crop of seniors is probably a little different because they're the COVID crew. Let's talk about that for a second. How was that as a young new teacher? How was that to shift from, so you were here, in 2018 or 2019?
Yeah, so this senior class, actually, they were my first freshman class.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, you actually have the best barometer to measure, what an experience that's been.
Yeah, first, I'm so proud of the senior class. They've really come so far since they were freshmen, and then throw in 2 years of distance learning, hybrid learning, missed experiences. They didn't, this was their first jungle game that they got to go to this year, and that's crazy, right? Especially thinking about traditions, and not just that, but missed, I went to the musical, and a lot of the seniors were like, this was my first and only performance, right? It's such a bummer, but they don't focus on the negatives there. They are excited to be here. They're, helping lead our school and teaching the younger guys, like, how to be a Padre. So I'm, first of all, just so proud of them generally as a class. I love this class. They're great. But in the classroom, they've grown so much, too. It's so funny to think back to freshman year. And a lot of them, I didn't see for a long time. And then I come back, and now they're a foot taller than me, and they're great writers, and they're, really engaged with their work, and it's super cool.
I'll bet. And how is that for you as a young teacher? I'm just curious. I mean, I know that I was so impressed as a parent here, of a junior here at Serra, but also as, you're my colleagues, and I was so amazed at the quick, sharp transformation that you were able to go into remote learning and hybrid learning and everything that was thrown on you. How was that for you as a teacher?
Oh, it was tough. Yeah, no, it was certainly hard. Luckily, we have the resources we were fortunate enough to have the resources to safely open. But yeah, it was certainly a huge challenge. Switching curriculum, that's meant for, X amount of class meetings in a semester, and we plan our years out in the summer. I mean, we're planned out to the day far in advance, especially our department. And so then, okay, we're going distance, and you're going to lose 25 class meetings. And so that's like, okay, we got to scale back. We have to figure out what is absolutely essential for our students to learn. And then it was switched to hybrid, where we got some class periods back maybe, but it was in a totally different format, and half here, half not. So then how do you successfully deliver the information and assess student learning? It was a lot to balance, but ultimately I'm really, really lucky that, again, that was I am part of the English department. We really supported each other through it. And a silver lining of all of that is that we were able to really refine our curriculum and evaluate what best serves our student needs for them to be successful based on our standards-based curriculum. So as hard as it was, I think our department is in a really strong place because of that. So that's, again, a silver lining, but it was certainly a big challenge. I'm really happy to be back in a normal, hopefully, knock on wood.
I know.
Normal schedule moving forward.
Yeah, it is great. And even with the masks lifted recently, it's nice to see everybody's full faces now, I'm sure,
Yeah,
right?
I had to relearn names. I didn't realize how much the mask coming off would confuse me.
And I'm sure expression, too. I mean, I think that I long thought when you were all behind a screen teaching, which I don't know how you had so many of your students engage, and they did engage. I mean, you did a great job.
Tried our best. Yeah.
But I mean, to know, like, to not have the expressions on the faces when maybe you're reading a passage or discussing a topic, that you can kind of get that nonverbal cue as to whether or not, well, A, if they're bored, but B, and that's probably never the case in your class, but
often it's
but
okay.
I mean, like, if it's an offensive topic, or if it's a
Yeah, it was really, body language is such an indicator of like how students are doing, obviously, and I rely heavily on body language and facial expressions, and in my class we do a ton of partner work and group work and smaller conversations before big conversations, so missing those cues was definitely a challenge. And then with the seniors, for example, we teach the book All American Boys, which is about an incident of police brutality. Mm-hmm. So it's heavy. It's a tough, a lot of tough conversations to be had, a lot of content we need to get through before we even start the book, in order to have a fair and accurate reading of it. And so having that in a hybrid model was definitely challenging, and seeing the difference between last year with those conversations to this year is night and day. So I mean, last year seniors in hybrid did fantastic as well. It's just you automatically lose on the more human side of conversation, which is so essential in our senior curriculum compared to this year. So. Well,
and also probably some of the personal feelings that those students had that were in their rooms reading. I mean, as opposed to having like the even exchange of ideas and being able to really alertly comprehend them.
Yeah, and no, I think it's tough I was in school as well with my master's program, and it's hard to engage when you're on Zoom. I get it. I totally empathize with my students. It's hard to get really into conversation when you're on a screen. So I empathize with them, and I was really grateful for the students who did participate. But I also, worried about kids who did feel strongly about what we were talking about, but maybe didn't feel comfortable talking about it. So definitely much more positive this year, or productive, I should say, having those conversations in the classroom.
That's great. Well, this is college acceptance season. We touched a little bit on the preparation throughout. I mean, I guess it's all 4 years of we're a college prep school, so it's all 4 years. But in the English department specifically, with so much depending on the literary responses, right, all the personal statements and such. Mm-hmm. Can you just talk a little bit about that, and just like I'm just curious, how do you encourage these students on what to write about? I mean, I'm sure there's a whole process, so I'd love to know it.
Yeah, so the other, Mr. Nolan and Mr. Ferrando built a really strong unit for the college essays, and basically there is a total process. So first we focus more on the personal statement, like the Common App one. Mm-hmm. I think what works really well for our purposes is throughout your English years at Serra, you're writing personal narratives. So freshman year we write a memoir paragraph, so an embarrassing moment and a proud moment paragraph. And then by senior year, you're using that same narrative style that we established freshman year and built on throughout the other years as well to write your personal narrative. So they have, the foundation of narrative writing. We obviously build on it again senior year, and then they choose a prompt that we narrow it down. A lot of students come in thinking like, oh, I'm going to write about, my team and my coach, and that's it. That's all I want to talk about. And we try to,
massage that.
Yes, yeah. No, we work through a lot of like what expectations, and we talk a lot about what college admissions counselors see. There's tons of online seminars that we've attended to help out our preparedness in helping them with writing these essays. But basically, they choose a prompt. We go over all of the prompts together. Past few years, they've been pretty much the same. And then they choose 2 or 3 and just brainstorm ideas. The first week-ish of the unit is a lot of brainstorming, a lot of, trying to recall important information from different experiences or people or whatever it may be to best fit the prompt. And then it's just tons of drafting, peer revising, or we call it peer coaching, meeting with your teacher, talking through it. One thing that, it sounds silly, but reading your essay out loud can yield such great revisions because you catch yourself oh, I just said that in the last paragraph, or oh, I need a comma here, all those little things. So it's a ton of revising. We do write 2 personal narratives in that unit too, so they have a lot to work with. And then beyond the grade that they get, we're available in office hours after school to help with not only the Common App personal statements, but we had a ton of UC applicants, and their essays look a little bit different. So writing their insight questions and focusing on best showing who you are outside of your resume, right? They have your grades, they have your, test scores, extracurriculars, and that's great. But the goal is to show the admissions committee at whatever schools who you are outside of that and what makes you, what makes you stand out.
That's amazing. It's so nice that it's integrated in the curriculum and it's such a, and a lot of my friends are hiring different, college counselors and such. So it's nice to know that there's a large part of it that's, handled in the classroom. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me just a little bit about how you perceive the college or the skills necessary to compete in college? How does Serra prepare our students to be able to write, at the collegiate level?
Yeah, sure. So we write, obviously, aside from the narrative units, we focus a lot on argument writing and persuasive writing. So our CEIJ format, which students don't love always. My freshmen are so sick of it right now. But CEIJ format, it lends itself really nicely to not only paragraph writing, but more extensive essay writing. The AP teachers, of course, Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Lowenstein do a great job of prepping their students with a more fast-paced writing course. But I think aside from the writing, which we, touch on all these different types of writing throughout the 4 years, and really help to master those skills. I think the critical thinking element in our curriculum is what helps students best be prepared for college. Again, the ability to problem solve, to draw connections between texts, between themselves and the text, events, and the world around them. Those skills and those conversations are really, I think, helpful in the long term. That, and we do have a speaking and listening standard, so their ability to articulate themselves verbally with a group or in a presentation, those smaller things I think really go a long way.
Definitely, and it sounds, those are life skills, right? They're not just in college, but it sounds like you're prepared for college and beyond, which is a huge thing. Well, thank you for all that. I know I'm asking you some pretty heavy questions. Yeah. I know, and you're so eloquently, you're speaking so eloquently, and it's so important to talk about. I see you often on campus. You'll be at a game. You'll be at a play performance. I know you're really active here. But what are your hobbies? What are the things you do in your off time?
Sure. Yeah. I do love coming to support the students. It's really fun to see them do their thing outside of the classroom. So I do love doing that. But away from Serra, I am a huge sports fan in general, so I love, Niners, Giants, Warriors.
In that order?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, in that order. So I'm a big sports fan. I really like spending time with my family and friends. I love anything Bay Area. I live up in the city, so city walks, hikes, checking out different neighborhoods is how I like to spend my time for the most part.
Sounds like a pretty good life. And what about what do you enjoy reading? What was the last book you read, or what do you hope to read next?
Okay, well, the last book I read, I just finished reading Where the Crawdads Sing, and it's
the best.
Oh my gosh, it was great. Yeah, so it's
so
being
good.
made into a movie. So
I saw that.
Yeah, I was excited to read that. I think my kind of go-to favorite author is David Foster Wallace, who I studied in college. I think he is an incredible writer, and he writes about mental health in a way that I haven't come across before in short stories, and he has longer novels as well. So he's probably my favorite author. But yeah, those are my two most recent.
Very cool. I was going to end up by asking if you're going to see Where the Crawdads Sing or not, because sometimes I don't like to watch the movie after I read a book. But instead I'm going to ask a different question, because you just touched on mental health. And I remember we spoke at one point, maybe last summer, and you were telling me about some of your graduate program, and you did a really cool unit on students here and their connection to mental health. Can you talk about that? It's so interesting.
Sure, yeah. So I did my master's thesis for NDNU on mental health at Serra High School. So my question was, how does mental health impact student experience at Serra? So I surveyed about close to 300 kids across all 4 grade levels, interviewed about 30, and it was a really eye-opening and in a lot of ways validating thesis research project, because I interviewed teachers and counselors as well. And overall, the findings were that Serra, and this was peak pandemic too. So overall, students here, based on my results, felt very supported. They were, had someone on campus that they trust, whether it be a friend or a coach or a teacher or a counselor or someone else. So that was really encouraging. It also offered, some ideas for growth, and I think that was a really definitely eye-opening project to run throughout, while I was teaching here too.
I can only imagine what you learned from that, and so helpful and valuable to Serra as well. I mean,
I shared it with the counseling department, and the counselors do such great work and are trying, their absolute best to meet the needs of students in terms of mental health with our Wellness Wednesdays, and they're available all the time and working crazy hours. So we're definitely lucky to be part of a community where so many people care. And I try to make that, known to my students as well. Like, yes, I'm your teacher, but I'm here for you. We all are, teachers, coaches, counselors. It's a special thing about Serra is it's such a supportive community.
I don't think you could say that enough. I think that everyone that at least that I talk to, and just watching, the dedication and the connection with the students, with each other too. I mean, you're all a very strong band. The faculty is amazing and so supportive of one another. So
it's good.
It's a pretty good place. Well, thank you for telling us about that, because I remember being so impressed with that back then, and happy with the results as well too. I mean, just because that was kind of a touch and go time, for a lot of youth and mental health, the connection.
Yeah. Certainly, all high schools I think have a special challenge right now, and coming back from COVID, and we all need to really be on it and supporting our students. So to know that there's some foundation of support for our guys is definitely comforting. Excited for what we'll do in the future too.
Awesome. That's great. Now I have to go back to my last question. Will you see the movie? Do you like to see movies?
Yeah, of course. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I haven't been to a movie theater since pre-COVID, but maybe for this one I'll see it. Maybe. Yeah, no, I love reading and then comparing it to the movies. We're doing that with Romeo and Juliet right now. We have 3 different versions going, and we're watching different scenes and which version best portrays Shakespeare's work. That's fun.
Great. That would be really fun. Awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
Perfect. Well, I really thank you for your time today. I hope to have you back on our podcast again, because I know there's a ton of different, elements of what you do that we weren't able to get into right now, but it's always a pleasure to talk with you, and I thank you so much. And if you'll send us out with the Go Padres, that would be great.
Sure thing. Go Padres.
Go Padres.
Thank you.